Hey folks, well tomorrow I'm heading out to the Corvair Performance Workshop out in North Carolina, driving out there, which is why I'm leaving tomorrow. And I thought, I was thinking about all the work that I've done, and it's probably time for me to do a description of what I've been doing to the car. Some in detail, but some general. If you've got questions about things that I say, you want to know more details, just let me know. Where I'm at right now, and you can see I've got the block that I've been cleaning, got a crank, I've got my bell housing, I've got a cam, I've got all this stuff. I've got some old Isky lifters, which should work okay. Pretty much pistons, cylinders, the carbs are in the storage room, and pretty much ready to finish cleaning the block and start conditioning, opening up oil passages and stuff like that. So right now, what's left on the car, other than final torquing and final adjustment and all that, is essentially getting some parts that are time dependent, like the fire system. I want to wait till the last minute so that it's valid for the longest amount of time. The harness, stuff like that. And I've still got to paint, but this is Chicago. And while it's springtime, it snowed today. So I'm going to wait a little bit longer to do my painting, because I do my painting in the shop. I don't have a paint booth or anything. And I need all the benefit I can get when I'm painting. So it's do the engine, do the painting, put it all together, and then maybe we'll have a viable race car. So let me talk about what's on the car. Okay, let's start with some overall stuff. I've talked about a lot of this stuff before, but if there's somebody new on the channel or in Facebook, this is what we got. 69 Corvair. It's got fiberglass doors, fiberglass fenders, fiberglass deck lid, and fiberglass trunk lid. It was originally built in '91. I raced it until 2001. And the cage was built by Craig Carter. If you look up the name, you'll see that he's of some note. And I raced it for a while, for 10 years, and did, well, who knows how I did with it. But this is the car, and let's do some detail. First thing, let's start at the back. I've talked about this before. I cleaned it up some. It's got this extra piece in here. That roll cage tubing wasn't there originally. The car was a bit flexible in the back, it turns out, so I've added that in. It's got the 3-link rear suspension. It doesn't rely on the half shaft anymore to locate the rear suspension. It's braced up some. You notice it doesn't have that extra air deflector anymore. All this stuff is totally legal, SCCA legal. Right now, it's got no inner fenders. I'm going to be making those out of some new aluminum sheeting. And this was the first thing I cleaned up. So nicely cleaned, freshened, painted, ready to go. I guess I got to mention that you've probably seen the videos where I've been mounting tires and stuff. They actually work. Tires are mounted. Everything's all cleaned up, ready to go. Rear suspension. Those are the original Conies that I've had for years. I just painted them. Replaced the springs, replaced the bump stops, replaced the brakes inside, replaced all the brake lines, the steel braided. I'm using the new non-steel hard lines. It's got replaced spherical bushings in the trailing arm. It's ready to go. Okay, front suspension. Well, other than replacing all the brake lines, all the brake parts, I've got an aluminum caliper instead of the original GM cast iron one. It's all cleaned up. It's all stripped out and painted. Also here, I have not put the inner fender in it yet, the aluminum inner fender. You'll notice that if you can see, I've recently redone the caster rod, the brake reaction rod. It's was actually, I kind of liked how I ended up doing it. I took a stock hockey stick, turned it down to 5/8 on the lathe, threaded it 5/8 18, and that's a pretty normal size for heim joints. So it was pretty easy. I was going to weld everything together, and this way it's actually easier to do and adjustable, less pieces. And used some square roll cage tubing and made up a bracket that goes into pretty much where the original caster rod goes. Other than that, I used the Eric Proces, hopefully I'm saying that right, lower inner spherical bearing that went in really well. I machined some Delrin, actually Delrin's the trade name, but machined some Delrin bushings for the upper inner A-arm bushings, and they work great. I really like machining Delrin. I really do. It's pretty good shape. And it's pretty much ready to go up here. Now, the trunk area was pristine until I leaked out brake fluid while I was bleeding the brakes. So now I have to repaint everything. But I'm using a marine fuel filter. It's cheaper than race car stuff, and it works really well, and it's also a water separator if I ever need that. I rebuilt the fuel pump that I used 30 years ago. And Canton oil filter with all the dash 12 lines running to the cooler and back to the engine. I used the original, it turned out the original bladder was good, but I replaced everything else. The foam baffling, the padding inside, and fittings and stuff like that. The master cylinder, it's still a dual master, kind of like would have been, because this is vintage. I don't want to improve it too much. But this is an aluminum master cylinder with stainless steel liner inside, cylinder liner. So it should work really well. And the interesting thing about it is it's got fittings on both sides of it. So it makes for a little bit more clean setup. What else do we have here? Well, we've got the oil thermostat, which recirculates until the oil gets warm. We've got a mechanical oil temperature gauge that plumbs right into the dash. And that's about it for now, for here. Well, how about inside the car? Well, inside the car, I've redone the steering wheel. I never had a quick release on this car, and on my other race car, I have it, and I really liked it. So I fabbed together from a couple different parts, a quick release. It's got a prop valve, a proportioning valve. Right now it's disconnected because I was checking all the brake lines and making sure there was nothing leaking and stuff. It's not necessarily disconnected, just not bolted up. The battery is in that spot, but for vintage racing, I'm actually going to put it inside a battery box, just like it was back in the 90s. It's a sealed battery, so it really doesn't need it, but I want it to be as it was. You can see the oil lines running back to the engine. And then next to the MSD, I've got the oil pressure switch and the oil pressure sender. And also the line that then runs to the AccuSump, which is also something I didn't run back then. And you need these. In the middle, that's exhaust gas pyrometer with switches. I run exhaust temperature sensor in each of the 6 pipes to see if anything's bad happening. Power cutoff right in here, right in that empty spot there is where the fire system is going to go, but I don't have it in there yet because I haven't bought it yet. The dash is right now as it was back then. And I'm going to keep it as much, well, actually, I think I'm going to keep it completely like it was. Nobody really uses fuses like that anymore, but they still sell them, and I'm going to use them. I'm going to rehook up the intercom, the two-way radio, whether I use it or not. It is vintage, and I want it to be as it was. I mentioned the MSD. This is the original MSD. Notice it's got an external tach adapter. And I always had trouble with the rev limiter not limiting. So when it runs on the track the next time, it'll have a new MSD, one of the new models that is much more tolerant of interference. So actually, there we go. There's the car. So far, pretty much ready to go. Well, not ready to go, but pretty much as it would be in the beginning of any racing season. So I still have yet to do the fine alignment. I have yet to check ride heights and stuff because until the engine and the gas is in there, I won't know exactly how it sits. And it'll be blue. It'll be Le Mans blue, just like it was when it was made. Cars hasn't been Le Mans blue since it was on the street many years ago. So I'm looking forward to that. So we'll see. And that's the way it is right now.